ready? All right. This is the, I don't know why I put that on to. It's been a long day.
It can be confusing.
Yeah,
And it went
yeah.
for your
Went
mouse.
off, on, off.
I know.
All right, this is the Budget Evaluation Team Special Meeting for Tuesday, July 7th. This is the 1 PM edition of our meeting. Do a roll call vote. Well, I'll call the meeting to order first. Roll call vote. Ms. Mertens?
Here in person?
Mr. Morrison?
Here in person.
Mr. Davidson?
Here.
Mr. Lambert?
Here in person.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Present on the interweb.
Ms. Laurent?
Here in person?
Ms. Miller?
Here in person?
And Compton is here in person as well. Item number 1, since we have some individuals remoting in, let's have a discussion and possible action to set a date, time, and place that this meeting will reconvene in the event technical difficulties arise during the course of the meeting and they cannot be corrected within a maximum of 30 minutes.
I'll make a motion for
Bueller.
3 o'clock today.
All right, there's a motion for 3 o'clock today. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. There is a motion and a second that if technical difficulties arise and we cannot fix them within 30 minutes, that we will reconvene at 3 o'clock this afternoon in the BOCC room. Roll call vote. Ms. Mertens?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Mr. Davidson?
Aye.
Mr. Lambert?
Aye.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Ms. Laurent?
Aye.
Ms. Miller?
Aye.
And Compton is an aye. All right, item number 2, discussion and possible action to approve the minutes of the regular meeting dated Tuesday, June 9th, 2020, and then the special meeting Tuesday, June 9th in the afternoon, and the Tuesday, June 11th and June 16th special meetings.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve the minutes? Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second to approve those minutes. Ms. Mertens?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Mr. Davidson?
Aye.
Mr. Lambert?
Aye.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Ms. Laurent?
Aye.
Ms. Miller?
Aye.
And Compton is an aye. Oh, the motioner, please.
Hang on, let me withdraw. I did, there we go, sorry. There we go.
All right, we got a verbal vote. Okay, the motion's there, so we don't need to mash buttons on that one? Okay. All right, item number 3. Actually, if you guys don't mind, let's skip 3 for now. We've got Mr. Billingsley here for item number 4, so let's go ahead and take his item up so he can not sit through more than necessary. So item number 4 is discussion possible action to recommend to the Budget Board a transfer of $50,000 from General Fund Reserve 995 to General Government 110. These allocated dollars will then be transferred via purchase order to Court Services 1260-3020 GPS Indigent Fund in order to do a purchase order to fund the cost of Oklahoma County Court Services Program for providing GPS services to individuals deemed indigent by the Oklahoma County District Court. That was a mouthful. Mr. Billingsley.
All right, good afternoon. As most of you know, this was August 2013 when it was decided there would be $50,000 placed in an account to cover the indigent fund for GPS placement. And just as a reminder, what this is for is for those folks who would be released on pretrial release.
Okay, hang on one
Sorry.
second. Hang on. Okay, yeah. Mr. Davidson, can you please activate your video? You were listed as being present via video conference, and we can only hear you, so we'll need you via video.
That's pro,
Sorry?
no, possible.
While he's trying to come back, do we need to go back and do minutes and whatnot? That's all we've done so far is approve minutes. Okay.
Breaking news.
It's important in sports.
Well, I'll share it once it comes across. Why is 2025 so important for Mahomes?
All right, is the thing working? Oh, the video's still not there.
Yep. We can hear you, we just can't see you.
That's good.
Well, that's what we thought.
All right, you got it.
All right, we got him. Let's go ahead and start back over. We're going to do take two on this. Christie, you want to make your motion to, if this meeting has technical difficulties that can't be fixed within 30 minutes, we will resume this meeting at 3 PM today in this room?
Yes, so moved.
Is there would you like to second it again?
Second.
Okay. Ms. Miller made the motion, Ms. Mertens seconded. We've lost your video again, Miles. There you are. Ms. Mertens,
Aye.
Mr. Morrison. Aye. Mr. Davidson,
Aye,
we can't see you again.
aye, aye.
We can hear you, we can't see you. There you go. All right. Mr. Lambert.
Aye.
Mr. Honeycutt.
Aye.
Ms. Miller.
Aye.
And I skipped Ms. Lawrence. Ms. Lawrence?
Aye.
And Compton is an aye. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from 6/19/2020 AM meeting, 6/9/2020 PM meeting, 6/11 and 6/16 meetings?
Motion.
Miles, hang on a second. Miles? There you go.
It keeps cutting in and out.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Ms. Mertens?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison? Aye. Mr. Davidson?
Aye.
Mr. Lambert?
Aye.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Ms. Lawrence?
Aye.
Ms. Miller?
Aye.
And Compton is an aye. All right, we skipped item number 3. We will come back to it after item number 4. Item number 4 is discussion and possible action to recommend budget board to transfer $50,000 from General Fund Reserve 995 to General Government 110. These allocated dollars will then be transferred via purchase order to Court Services 1260-3020. This will fund the cost of Oklahoma County Court Services Program for providing GPS services to individuals deemed indigent by Oklahoma County District Court. Mr. Billingsley?
Take two?
Yes,
Okay,
take
so,
two.
like I said, August 2013, there was $50,000 placed in an indigent fund. Those funds are used for those folks who could be placed on an ankle monitor and released from jail, pretrial release, however, could not afford to pay for those fees. Therefore, the indigent fund was created to cover those payments to allow those individuals to be released from jail. That $50,000 over those years started off being used very limited and then obviously grew and grew. And it's gotten to the point now where that $50,000 is pretty much depleted. We needed a little bit more money last year even to finish. So moving forward, as it continues to grow, we're looking at, I'll say about $2,000 a month being spent out of that account for a monthly fee. But then at the end of the year, there's also a lost bracelet fee that has to be covered as well. This last year, that was about $12,000. So $50,000, I think, is fair to ensure we're safe to finish that year. Also taking into consideration that there's more and more people being placed on it. For example, just a short example, the previous month, there was on a caseload of GPS people about, I think it was 57, this last month, 71. So it's just growing and growing, and especially it could be because the times we're in right now. So I'll be happy to answer any other detailed questions, or which I know you guys all know about this fund.
What was your ending fund balance on June 30th? Like, what's your balance in there now?
The payment has not gone through yet for June's, because we don't get that bill until the whole month finishes, and then everything's collected. Then once we do, we have to make sure we know which one is indigent and calculate that and separate it out. But if I was to guess, and I could confirm that number, but it's going to be about $2,000 or $2,500. So we probably have at least 1 month of a payment, possibly partially of the second one.
I'll make the motion, we make the recommendation to Budget Board.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second, and the beauty of this, once the purchase order is done, it's placed in that rollover account. Even if you don't utilize all $50,000 this year, it'll be available for you to start the next year.
Right, yeah, and I'll reiterate that. That's
Yeah.
the same as it's been in the past.
Yep.
We've never asked for money. It just keeps rolling over.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve the agenda item. Ms. Mertens?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Mr. Davidson?
Aye.
Mr. Lambert?
Aye.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Ms. Lauren?
Aye.
Ms. Miller?
Aye.
And Compton is an aye. Thanks, Grant. Appreciate your time. All right, item number 4, we're going to roll back up to, item number 3. Discussion possible action regarding funding recommendations to the Budget Board from Special Projects Fund 1400 CARES Act. We have some attachments. It's attachment number 89 and 91, both from the Election Board. The assessor has item 141 that is attached. The sheriff has 142, 43, 46, 50, 54, 57, 55, 60, 64, 69, and 91. All of those are attached, and there's also a spreadsheet attached with all those items listed on there. Is there any individual consideration of any of these items?
What else, Miles? Oh, he's back.
He's back, yeah. Okay, if nobody has anything, I want to ask Mr. Honeycutt on a couple of these. Mr. Honeycutt, ID number 157 and 160, everything seems to be in order as far as the documentation, the dates, the dollar amounts, everything matches up. But those are both for additional toilet paper. Is that because of, I guess what I'm getting at, we got to look at the 3 categories, whether it's within the timeline, whether it was not budgeted, and then whether it was the necessity arose due to COVID-19. Can you explain to me how these fit into that category?
Yeah, what we saw on items 157, 160, and then I believe 154, which is the women's hygiene products, what we saw was a scarcity in the civilian world. And so what we did was we built up our supply counteract any potential shortfall that we would encounter. So while it is a item that would be used in the day-to-day business, what we saw was we were concerned that we were seeing a shortage of product, so we just made sure to get ample amount.
Okay, and 154 was the other one that I had a question on, and you addressed it with that as well, with that description. Does anybody have any questions, comments?
It seems like it's still items that you would need during the normal course of business, COVID or not. You just bought some, you just went ahead and bought a little more at one time. I understand why you did it, that the reason was COVID, but
Correct, and if these
they
need to be
still
re-
would be supplies that you're going to still use, you just have more in the storeroom. Like you just bought more.
Correct.
That was
But
what I was looking at as well.
right, it was an unbudgeted expense, just doing no large parts of the fact we wouldn't have typically purchased that much at this point in the year. However, I don't disagree, because if we want to remove those from consideration, I don't have any heartburn over that.
I think just for clarity, and I mean, that one is kind of a gray area on there. I think we'd probably be better off removing those from the consideration. It's just my opinion. It sounds like Christie might be there as well, but, because I agree, the budgeted, I think we're clearly there. You didn't budget for that big of a purchase last fiscal year, but it being directly related, the need, is where I have problems connecting the dots there, so.
I think if you want to look at the directly related to the need, it's just COVID created the need by reducing the availability of acquiring the product. And so that's not a product that we can afford to run out of. And so, but like I said, I have no heartburn one way or the other one.
Because you have seen experienced shortfalls in that type of material, right?
I'm sorry, Mike, I didn't hear you.
Have you experienced shortfalls in that type of material?
What we noticed was when we were ordering that there was beginning to be some shortfalls potentially, and so just to combat that, that's why they made these larger orders. Because so obviously, we can't ever not have enough women's hygiene products, and the inmate population would be severely impacted if they didn't have the appropriate toilet paper.
And this is only in light of the COVID-19 exposure, right?
Correct. The shortfalls, as everybody knows, there was a tremendous run in the stores on toilet paper. So, the pandemic definitely caused the shortage. So however we want to feel on this, like I said, I have no heart with it.
I guess where I'm coming from, and I commend you guys for recognizing the issue and getting in front of it and making the purchases. I mean, that was a very responsible thing to do. I just think if we wouldn't have been in that situation, then we wouldn't have made the lump sum purchases all at once. It would have been then and then a little bit this next month and, the next few months, but ultimately it would have been the same amount of product that was purchased. We just needed to buy it at this particular time instead of spreading it out, and that's where the dots connecting it directly to COVID. I understand it's the timeline that you purchased it was directly related to that. I don't know.
So do you currently have a surplus of toilet paper right now to the point to where you won't have to buy for a while?
Currently, we're not responsible for that purchase any longer.
Nice.
Yeah. I
So,
started to try to.
and that's, I think that's the other thing that's a little bit difficult for us to look at right now. I don't know what their current stockpile is, but I know
That's
that
fair.
it was fine when we left them on the first. So like I said, if you feel like this isn't quite enough of a connection, then, because I don't disagree that the product is something that's going to be used on a day-to-day. Now, is it that we have purchased the same amount of product but for COVID in the fiscal year? Probably not. I don't know if we would have purchased that much, but, you know, either way.
Okay.
Let me ask one other question. I noticed it's all out of 1160. These products were clearly for the detention center.
Correct.
And a carryover amount, now that it's two separate legal entities, when the carry amount was done, I'm sure their carry amount, in theory, would be less because it was used for detention center items. If you hadn't bought the stockpile, there would have been more to carry over. So in my mind, this impacts now
There would have been more to carry over,
criminal justice.
but there's less that they have to purchase because those purchases are already
Yeah,
on
I
hand.
just,
I don't know. Aaron, do you have any legal opinion on this at all about fitting in?
about toilet
Not
paper.
offhand, I'd prefer to deliberate on that a little bit more.
Okay. Well, I'm just a little uncomfortable because of the reasons that we discussed. I'm open, though, to the will of this group. I mean, we can continue to have more discussion on these three items, or if somebody wants to make a motion, entertain a motion as well.
To do a reimbursement now to 1160, then that money would go to the detention center, correct? Or to the jail trust?
I believe we'd have to find a mechanism to make that happen, yes.
Yeah. So we're spending money on jail trust, we're reimbursing.
Unless, I mean, ultimately, I think that's where the money goes back to. We would just have to figure out the mechanism to make that occur.
All right.
I think I'll make a motion that we pull these three, given that the money would go back to the jail trust, given that it's supplies that would be used anyways, and given that the jail trust has those supplies.
I'll second.
These three what, I'm sorry?
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, it would be item 157, 160, and 154. They have the goods.
But beyond those three, your motion is to
Just
make
those three.
recommendation on a reimbursement for the rest of the items.
My motion is to pull these three.
Okay,
We
I
have
got
that
you.
discussion.
Okay, with those three items being,
Referring or denying or striking?
Pull, strike.
okay, so we got a motion to strike those three items. Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second to strike items 154, 157, and 160. All right, roll call vote. Ms. Mertens?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Mr. Davidson?
Aye.
Mr. Lambert?
Aye.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Ms. Laurent?
Aye.
Ms. Miller?
Aye.
And Compton is an aye. All right, is there a motion or discussion related to the remaining items on this list?
Danny Honeycutt, I hate to put you on the spot. On the ones remaining for the sheriff, is it possible to go through them and say if it's law enforcement or the money would be going to the jail trust? I'm leery of spending money out of COVID if it's going to the jail trust without figuring more stuff out.
Right, and I think that's a great point, Christie. All of these, so I think that's where it's got to get figured out, because the money is technically reimbursing the county for expenses the county incurred, but conceptually now the money would be going to, that reimbursable money would be going to the jail trust. Is that pathway acceptable?
Yeah.
Because all the rest of these are for detention-specific
Okay.
funds. So yes, they would be going, they'd be getting, I don't know.
Yeah, I know, we're in a unique situation.
I guess technically depending on how, with Aaron in the room, it's the county's money still. So does it have to be reimbursed to the trust because it wasn't incurred when the trust had operational authority over the jail? So, that's one path. If it doesn't, but we'd have to go back and see what that trust measure says about the assets associated with the detention center.
But if these expenses were for the detention center, had COVID not happened, had these expenses not taken place, that money would have been part of the money that we're carrying over to the trust, right?
Correct. I don't think that there's any issue with the actual expenditures and what we're talking about. I think we're looking at it from the back end now of what we're doing with the reimbursed money. Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I applaud you for stepping out and doing that, so.
Thank you.
Well, I'm just not sure, though.
Aaron, not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. And if you need additional time to research this, that is fine, and we will ask an official question. But is there an issue with the county, in your mind, reimbursing, let's assume that the items were fit all three of the necessary categories, which I think the remaining items all fit there, date-wise, purpose-wise, and all of that. Is there an issue in your mind with us approving a reimbursement of these dollars that would then flow over to the trust, the authority?
I'd prefer to have a written question on that and let us work all the way through that.
And I guess really what we're talking about is not necessarily a direct flow back to the authority, and does that have any impact on the analysis? Because it's going to, be reimbursed back to the county, because we wouldn't be able to just go directly from the CARES Fund to 1160 in the first place, would we? So in essence, it would just be able to reimburse the county for its expenses, and whatever funds the county ultimately transmits to the trust could be a separate transaction. So I just don't know how that all plays in the analysis of it.
Danny or Kelly, maybe you guys can help us here. We've had some reimbursements that were special, went into special funds. When we're doing that, when BOCC approves that claim, what's that process look like? Is it going directly from there to that special revenue account? That was my understanding.
Yeah, there's a separate check that gets
Okay,
deposited
yeah.
into that special revenue fund.
Yeah, so the issue here, I think, would be the 1160 that's left is not a 1160 detention, that's the 1160 law enforcement, correct?
All right.
So if we did a reimbursement to 1160, it wouldn't go back to the trust unless we pulled it back out of your 1160 account. So what we could maybe do, and we might want to ask the question, but is take these items and instead of reimbursing 1160, just reimbursing general fund, let it come back to general fund, and then that money is available in general fund to allocate to the trust. I don't really like that because that's not where the money was spent from in the beginning, but
I don't think you can do that.
This is really this.
I don't think we can reimburse a special revenue and put it in general. I mean, I would think you'd have to reimburse the fund that the expense came from, and 1160, unless I'm wrong, had a law enforcement
It did.
budget and a detention
It did.
budget. So I thought I heard you say these are all detention related.
they are, but the 1160 detention, they don't have anything to do with that fund any longer because they're not doing detention. So what they have is the 1160 law enforcement. So could this even go into the 1160 law enforcement?
You know, we're still billing, this is a little bit sidestep, but we're still billing for like boarding and stuff like that. So for May and June. So, I mean, I don't know exactly at what point we're going to lose control or how much control we have currently on the issue.
So if you're still billing, that money's still coming into that account, and then when we're done billing, all of that money that's in that account will just be transferred to the trust. So if we did reimburse into that account, we could do that. I was thinking it was a dead account now, but it sounds like it's not.
No, there is still some billing, and there's some additional, there's some carryovers on budget board for this Thursday, but there'll be some additional ones. Again, the billing's the normal course of business. This is out of CARES money, federal money, but.
Right. But once again, these are items that I feel, and I haven't heard anybody else say otherwise, that fit into the category. We paid for them out of 1160. The 1160 detention account, 1160 detention account is still within our control. So we can, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's still within our control,
Well,
so.
it's within our control, but as of July 1, and those billings for May and June belong to the.
It's going to be transferred over to
Right.
them, right. What I'm saying is it's still in our control, so if we reimburse back into the 1160 account that's still in our control, that gets to your point a minute ago about if the sheriff's office did not have to make these purchases because of COVID, they would have had that money to roll over at the end of the day. So if we just do the reimbursements into the 1160, it puts them back in the same situation that they would have been had we not had to make the purchase. So it's not really, we're not transferring it to the authority directly, we're reimbursing into our own 1160 account, and then whatever money's in that 1160 account, when we roll it over to them, that's what's going to be in there.
Right. Yeah, we are reimbursing for expenses that were incurred by the county prior to June 30th. So I think that money going back into the fund and then we do a cash transfer of whatever's left over to the trust is very appropriate.
Okay, and that's completely different than us just making an allocation to the trust or sending money directly to them. It's into our account that we spent this
Right.
money out of, so, okay. Is there any more discussion?
But we would still need to know what part of this is law enforcement, what part of this is for detention.
I think Danny indicated that these were all detention, all of these
Yeah,
reimbursements.
I believe they're all detention. The only one that may not be would be one of the issues for thermometers, but I think other than that, I think they're all detention, save for made up one. Because, there's two separate items for thermometers.
Okay.
Right.
I can't see it broken down here.
Yeah, it's 142 and 143.
Right.
But once again, if we approve the reimbursement of these expenses, it's all, the decision is whether they fit within there, and it's going to go to 1160, and then the determination will be made at the clerk's level whenever they transfer it into 1160. They'll just have to get with the sheriff's office and decide which 1160 account it goes into.
True. Yep.
Doesn't the application page have a cost center? Like 525 or 5 something?
Mm-mm.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Where's that at?
It's on the check, on the
Oh, okay.
description of the check.
Oh, I see purchase order 5.
So we've got
Because the cost
Department
center-
500 and Department 502. Great point.
Yeah, they were out of different ones, so it would just go back into one of them will go back into the 500 and the other one will go back into 502, so.
Okay.
All right, is there any further discussion? All right, then let's get a motion.
And move the remaining items, minus 154, 157, 160.
Okay, you're moving to approve the reimbursements, to make a recommendation to approve.
Right. Move to make a recommendation.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second to approve all of the items sans the original three that were stricken from the item. Ms. Mertens?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison? Aye. Mr. Davidson?
Aye.
Mr. Lambert?
Aye.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Ms. Laurent?
Aye.
Ms. Miller?
Aye.
And Compton is an aye.
Question, does that include 89 and 91, or did y'all do something with that?
That
before?
it included 89 and 91?
You're okay with those now?
Oh, I thought he just did his.
Right.
Oh. I understood his as being all of the items except for the three.
That's what I thought.
Denny, was that your motion? Let's just make sure we're clear.
It was, if we need further discussion on the other three, though, I'm fine to amend my motion.
But that was your motion. Who made the second?
I did.
And that was, your second was including all of them except for the three specifically stricken items,
All
correct?
items, not just the sheriff's items, right?
Okay, and everybody voted in favor of that. Does anybody need to go back for a revote? Okay, so everybody's clear? Okay, yeah, that was approval of all of them, thank you. Yeah, I had looked more into it, I didn't, yeah. Okay, if there's no other discussion on item 3, Item 5, discussion possible action regarding policies and procedures related to the newly established Special Projects Fund. Anything to discuss there? All right, seeing none, discussion and possible action, receive an update related to the status of all cost centers set up within Special Projects Fund 1400. Do we have anything?
Can we go back to
Kinda
5 real quick? Sorry, I was checking on my phone.
Sure, go ahead and make a motion, to reopen 5.
I'd like to make a motion to reopen number 5.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to reopen item number 5. Ms. Mertens?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Mr. Davidson?
Aye.
Mr. Lambert?
Aye.
Mr. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Ms. Laurent?
Aye.
Ms. Miller?
Aye.
And Compton is an aye.
Who seconded that?
Oh, I didn't press, I didn't mash.
We need MASH t-shirts. Do what? Yeah. Mine's not even up.
Yeah.
No, mine isn't either.
No, you're good.
Okay, good,
We're all good.
okay. Well, I'd like to discuss an issue in regards to, I know, an application that may have come through that was not accepted or not approved, and there, if we were to allow another application to either come in or be modified, there's been some discussion in regards to how we do that modification. In regards to what I understand from MIS is that don't have the ability to add additional documentation to those original documents that are uploaded in regards to that application. So what I guess we need to look at or address is, are we looking at modifying an original application? Or if that application needs to be reviewed again, are we asking them to submit a second application with different documentation with it?
What kind of different documentation are we talking? Are we talking about just supplemental?
Correct.
You're not changing the application, you're just adding additional
Additional
information?
documentation.
I think the process on that, if we can't get InfoZone fixed to where we can go in and modify that, then what I would think is you would just contact the clerk's office and tell them, we've got these additional supplemental documents, can you add those to the packet? And then the clerk's office can just attach that with the other items from your application and then get it onto our agenda.
So we would still be the original application with additional supporting documentation by at that point?
Yeah, I mean,
I just want to make sure
I
that
think
we
that would-
had that in the process so that we understood that, so that everyone would be aware
Yeah.
of that situation, so.
does anybody have a differing solution? I think that's probably the easiest
Easiest
and
way.
least confusing way.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, anything else on 5? All right, we don't need any action on that. Is there any, back to item number 6, is there any discussion on the cost centers that are set up? They don't answer to spin out of that, okay. No action needed on 6. Item 7 is an update from Emergency Response Committee. They're not here today. They've not had a meeting this week. Their first meeting will be tomorrow for this week, tomorrow afternoon. So if the numbers are getting higher and whatnot, so if you guys have any questions or concerns and want to come to that meeting, I think it would be helpful and beneficial for them to get feedback from the other elected offices. All right, item number 7, no action needed. Next up, citizens' participation. Any citizens want to address the board? Seeing none. Board comments. Ms. Mertens?
No, thank you.
Mr. Morrison?
No, thank you.
Mr. Davidson?
Thanks for bearing with me as I try this new mobile thing here over a phone. I was driving down the road trying to make it back in time and pulled over at a park and have been doing this meeting in a park.
I was going to call golf course, but you clarified.
Hey, Miles, is there a node pole nearby?
I know out there is a bucket truck, and they are doing something to a pole over there, and I'm not sure.
They're
It
noding
would
it up.
surprise me if it was a 5G deal.
All right, Mr. Lambert?
No, thank you.
Mr. Honeycutt?
No, thank you.
Ms. Laurent?
No, thank you.
Ms. Miller?
Nothing, thank you.
And I do not have anything. Thanks, everyone. We are, we do need
I'll make a
our
motion
last
to
item.
adjourn.
Is there, okay, we have a motion to adjourn and a second. Ms. Mertens?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Mr. Davidson?
Aye.
Mr. Lambert? Aye. Mr. Honeycutt?
Aye.
Ms. Laurent?
Aye.
Ms. Miller?
Aye.
And Compton is an aye. Thanks, everyone.